going to be having a test, a major test soon, and I will send you an email about that. And it's basically going to be both a multiple choice and essay. But the essay, I'm going to let you kind of take home. That way you'll have a week or so to do it. And the multiple choice, it's not going to be open book like the last little quiz. So I will help you in terms of a study guide. Well, or at least a review. I'm not going to give you a study guide, but I will kind of do a little lecture review to help you with the multiple choice. The essay, the essay is a little bit more kind of higher order thinking. I want y'all to, really give me your opinion about a few things. It may be essay, maybe some short answer. I haven't designed it yet. I do a different one every semester. So you're going to have to, really kind of put some information together. And the main thing, again, is to kind of give me your opinion about certain things and explain to me why you think this, okay? The multiple choice is mainly just kind of knowledge base. And we'll talk about that some more, but just make sure that you keep up with what's going on. We're looking at maybe in the next week and a half. I'll definitely send you something this week, and then it'll probably be definitely before you have a little break for Mardi Gras. Now, last time we talked about the Puritans, and we're going to continue talking about the Puritans because the Puritans are often accused of being anti-democratic, killjoys, intolerant, and Indian killers. And I'm going to defend the Puritans in all of these except for this one because it's true. These, however, are only true if you look at it through the way we view the world today. If we looked at a society today that was like the Puritans, we would consider them to be anti-democratic, to be killjoys, to be intolerant. But for that time in the 1700s, if you compare Puritan society, and remember this is in Massachusetts, to what one would find in Europe, in Western Europe at that time, or Eastern Europe for that matter, or you could say even the rest of the world. In many ways, the Puritans were actually pretty progressive. And what do I mean? Okay, well, let's look at the charge that they were somehow anti-democratic. Well, the reason people look at that today and say, well, they were anti-democratic because the only adult males could vote. Well, that was a case. That was the case until the 19th Amendment. All right, well into the 20th century. So, to say that, well, in the 1700s, I mean, most places in Europe at that time, nobody could vote. So I think that that's an example of why I don't think that they were really that anti-democratic. What about this idea that they were killjoys? People that didn't want to have fun or whatever. That's also not necessarily the case because they were, they played musical instruments. All right, they told secular jokes. They drank beer, wine. All right, rum. Okay, all of this stuff about them being killjoys, and you look at America today, and you go, you normally don't go to beaches and see topless women. However, if you go to a lot of places around the world, that's not that necessarily a big deal. And people say, well, why are Americans that way? And a lot of people look at it, say that it's because of our Puritan, influence. But that's not really the case. Okay, the Puritans, a lot of that kind of what the puritanical culture that people sort of say that Americans are that way because of the Puritans. There's a lot. Again, before the 19th Amendment, we had the 18th Amendment, where they tried to actually outlaw alcohol. A lot of that came from the Victorian age in the 1800s when they were so prudish that you literally could not, like if you were at a, say for example, a piano recital, you actually had to cover the legs of um, the stool that the pianist was sitting on, or that's when they started saying white meat and dark meat for chicken because they didn't want to say breasts or legs. I mean, it was really ridiculous. And if any of you have taken psychology, you'll know that Sigmund Freud in the early 1900s was really preoccupied with sex, and that's a lot of people look at the 1800s and the Victorian age when they kind of totally suppressed sex and even talking about it or even writing it down or anything. And so the early 1900s, people were going to kind of obsessed with it in a way. So a lot of time, a lot of people accuse Americans of, sure, like you can say we're puritanical, but that term um, implies that we're that way because of the Puritans, where in fact it was really more, like I said, the influence of the Victorian age. Um, Going back to this charge of being anti-democratic. All right. Something else that a lot of people look at is they say, well, only the wealthy were elected. Whoops. Elected to public office, and of course, well, that was true. But one can say that that's the way it is with today. All right, I am not going to be able to run for an elected office, or unless I have money. You'd be surprised even at local elections, especially in Louisiana, how much people spend on money, or I'm sorry, on elections. So maybe it shouldn't be that way. You can have an opinion about that, but I wouldn't look at that as a reason that we can say that the Puritans were really anti-democratic. They were also very what we call egalitarian, and one could say that kind of comes from this Calvin's notion and Luther's doctrine of the priesthood of all believers. So, what do I mean by egalitarian? Well, one of the things, for example, that the Puritans started, and maybe you can say that we can blame them for it, if you didn't like going to school very much. Um, well, they started public schools. Now, what does that have to do with egalitarianism? Well, if you say, well, everyone is going to go to school, everyone's going to learn how to read, all right, everybody's going to learn how to write, all right, that's a good way to create equality, okay? Not equality of outcome, but at least get everyone to start off with some basics, okay? The reason that people look at uh, the the Puritans as being intolerant is because of the Salem witch trials. And we're going to talk about that actually in my next lecture. So this was just like a little short lecture, but there's definitely going to be a few questions on the test from it, and I will start um, a new lecture where I talk specifically about the Salem witch trials.